Many people speaking before me have pointed out how Sita was an eminently relatable person. Sita knew the peon in the JNUSU office. He also knew the vice chancellor many years after he had left the campus. We all seen that movie Munna Bhai MBBS. Munna Bhai asked the sweeper what his name was. Instead of giving out his name, that man cries. He weeps. He says, in all these 30 years I've worked here, this is the first time somebody has asked me my name. So Sita was actually that kind of a person who would establish a personal relationship with whoever he had to deal with in whatever capacity to whatever degree. And this, I think, is very important. It is not purely a personality trait. It is a quintessentially political trait. Unless you are able to relate to people as people, rather than as specimens of certain group categories into which we tend to categorize people, you will not be able to understand what the people's concerns are. I've known Sita when I used to read George Orwell as enemy propaganda. I knew Sita after I was convinced that Animal Farm in 1984 are leftist critiques of a failed communist project. Sita related with me, related as well as he did when he was my leader in JNU, and later when I was what I thought a constructive critic. Sitaram was a columnist for the Economic Times, whose edit page I edited for many years. All through the UPA years, after every budget was presented, we would request Sitaram to write for us on the budget. He was a sharp, incisive commentator and also a very disciplined one. Writing for a newspaper with a deadline that closes early, Sita was always very prompt in delivering his article when he was supposed to. He met the deadlines. When Sita became SFI All India President in 1984, the person who was widely expected to become the president to succeed M.A. Baby was C.P. John from Kerala. He was a big leader from Kerala, but Sita became the president. C.P. John had reason to be miffed, but instead, in just a couple of months, John became an ardent admirer of Sitaram and thought it was the right decision for Sita to have been made the president. He invited him over to Kerala, gave him a reception, and of course in Kerala it's not like in Delhi, when an organization like the SFI or the CPIM decides to give somebody a reception, it is a reception. C.P. John paid a very moving tribute to Sita after he left us. So he was that kind of a person. I just want to say one more thing before I conclude. Sita was not confined to the campus, right? Of course, all of us met him initially on the campus, but his politics was much larger. I do not think the left particularly understood the dynamics of Indian politics very carefully at any point of time. When the VP Singh government presided over this country and the Ram Janmabhoomi agitation was in its upswing, L.K. Advani was running his Rath Yatra across the country, creating communal tension and riots. The left supported the VP Singh government jointly with the BJP. Clearly, the left had not realized that the central danger in the Indian polity would be this right communal forces. That same Sita in 2019 had to fight within the party to make the party agree to join hands with the Congress in fighting the communal forces. This, I think, would not have been possible but for Sita's ability to relate to people as people. I'm a journalist, I write articles. It's my hope that I make sense to at least some people. But my daughter told me, Acha, you are doing complete nonsense, you're useless. I said, why? He said, you are talking to sense, you are addressing sense. You need to change people's sensibility. What you are writing will not change anybody's sensibility. And she is right. And this is one reason which I think Sita's loss at this juncture really matters. Behind Sita at his home and even displayed at his final place where he paid homage to him was displayed a poster of this film Andaz, Ludhianvi's poetry. If at all ever there was a need for another cultural revival, a movement to touch people's sensibilities, to strengthen the democratic sentiment and sensibility, it is now. If there was a need for a progressive writers movement, an Indian people's artists movement, in film, in theatre, in poetry, in painting, on YouTube, on Instagram, it is now. And there are some stray initiatives such as from Sohail in this direction, but this is something that is to be scaled up tremendously. And Sita, who had his poster not of some Brecht or any Neruda or anybody else, but of Andaz behind him, perhaps would have appreciated this need and amplified it and taken forward much further and stronger. I remember him fondly with a great deal of affection, and I regret his departure for myself and for the democratic movement in this country. Thank you.